Hi, welcome to the Telly Awards virtual event. It's our fourth Through Lines event of the season, and my name is Amanda Needham. I'm the Managing Director of the Telly Awards, and I am super excited to welcome everyone today to The Secret Sauce, How Garlic Bonding Became Popeye's Next Viral Hit. It is going to be a really interesting sort of deep dive into a holistic ad campaign, and it's part of a series that we've been doing at the Telly Awards for a while. At the Tellys, we honor excellence across all screens, from branded content to commercials and marketing to online or television shows and series, film and shorts, animation. And we have this really unique sort of purview over the industry as a whole as a result of that. And so our Through Lines event, which you're about to sit through, is an opportunity for us to sort of deep dive on those verticals and share for our larger community some of the insights that come from the different teams involved in our winners and our judging council. We are open for entries right now. So if you are making work across any of those verticals, our final deadline is February 20th. If you scan the QR code on the left side of the screen there, we'll send you more info about that, or can even help with category recommendations if you have them. And we'll also send you any resources that the folks that talked today mentioned during the course of the conversation. We're going to talk for about 30 minutes, start to bottom. You're going to see some examples of their work. And then at the end, we're going to hold time for questions. So if you have any thoughts or ideas or questions that come up over the course of the conversation, just drop them in the chat, either on LinkedIn or Facebook, and our team will bring them onto the screen and ask the folks those questions directly at the end. So with no further ado, I would like to bring on our esteemed guests. Today, we're talking with the McKinney team based in Toronto about their agency's recent garlic bonding campaign. And it's this great secret sauce of strategy and execution, and we're talking to the brains behind it. We have Hussein Roumati, who is the Associate Creative Director and Art Director. And we also have Caleb to come on screen here. They're both going to be talking to us about how they got the idea and where it came from, where it's going, how it worked. And we'd like to kick off the conversation with a single question to both of you, just like to frame for us what's really original about the garlic bonding campaign. And we'll start with Caleb and then Hussein, about your approach in general before we watch it and dig in. Caleb, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, for sure. So what is original about a campaign that turned garlic breath into a way to sell chicken sandwiches 2 at a time? Well, I've definitely never heard of it before. I know we bond over a lot of different things in life. And one of the things that we decided, you know what, maybe you could bond over garlic breath as well. Maybe that's a way that you could get closer to somebody that you love.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Original in our minds is, we obviously did a normal traditional advertising campaign for the sandwich, put it out in the world, but we didn't stop there. We're always looking for other ways to push the needle for our clients. And so, through some social listening, we, discovered some interesting insights that people were like, wow, this really does make my breath smell like garlic. And so we're thinking, okay, what can we do with that? How do you use that into a positive? How do you spin that? And that's really how we landed on this idea of, not just selling a sandwich, but maybe selling something more, maybe selling a relationship test to see how close you get to your partner.
For the record, our entire office keeps being like, garlic bonding, what is that? So you also created a concept here, which is the very idea of bonding through garlic breath, which goes well beyond a sandwich, I would just like to say. But let's actually watch sort of what you all did, what happened with it, and then we'll dig in a little more to the nuts and bolts.
Let's do it.
Burping up garlic for hours.
Garlic breath? Gross.
Do not eat this on a date.
What did you eat?
Off mark.
Last bite.
Mm-hmm. That was a big one. Boy.
Oh.
What do you love most about me?
That was garlicky. Sorry, I think I got you in the eye when I said that.
That you make me comfortable.
Your enthusiasm.
Garlic date anyone?
Is garlic about to save my marriage?
Garlic bread.
When's it my turn?
Who wants to garlic bond with me?
Cheers. Cheers. Got the garlic.
Your breath is burning my eyelashes.
I feel discomfortable.
This is why I wanted to talk to you in the first place.
Because you're full of Cordell.
I'm going.
I don't.
Are you kidding me? You're calling me clingy?
I'm pretty much sure that you're the one.
Ask me that again.
I mean, I love it every time I see it. So I'm also like, how did they do this? It said 8 days from concept to execution. There's celebrities. There's like this whole like little social thing going on where you're like trolling people. People are engaging. Awesome. Can you like frame for us, like, is this what you do on a daily basis? Is this your job? Like you work at an agency called McKinney. Is that the day? What is your daily job? And then how does this fit into it? And you guys can take one of those.
The day just usually starts, Hussein and I stare at each other for about half an hour and see what happens. But I mean, Hussein and I have been working together as a creative partnership since we were interns at in the early days, and this is essentially what we do. I mean, we show up, we create campaigns for the brands that we're servicing. Sometimes it's a TV spot, sometimes it's a social ad, sometimes it's garlic bonding. It's an idea that kind of transcends the media landscape and sort of inspires people to think differently about a product.
But you are the agency of record for Popeyes. You have a certain amount of like your actual like deliverable requirements are what? And then this sort of dovetails with it. How, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I touched on earlier. It's that traditional campaign, your social media, you're out of home, the kind of what you'd call standard advertising of seeing, the product and a message where, that is the day to day. But, the way we're wired is we're always looking for that edge, right? At McKinney, we always talk about unfair attention for our brands, and that's the way we're wired, and we're always looking for how can we get that unfair attention, right? So yes, we did a traditional campaign. Yes, it went out in the world, but what else, right? What else can we do? And that's where we start to look elsewhere and work with our social team to be like, what are people saying? What can we use? What is a human insight that we can build an interesting idea off of? And that's really where this idea came from, right?
So you actually launched the campaign, and then This was feedback, right? So talk to me a little about that timeline.
Yeah. We had just launched the campaign. It went out, and that's when sort of the social listening started to happen in terms of seeing how people reacted to the sandwich. So people went out, tried the sandwich, and there was this comment on Instagram, I think, where we had quite a few people saying, "Hey, look, this really gave me some serious garlic breath." Almost like,
like quite frankly, like of course it did.
Yeah,
like that's not an insane thing to think or to expect. But it's sort of, what does that mean from a social faux pas perspective? Well, like maybe I won't eat the garlic sandwich if I'm out with a friend. I don't care what Hussein thinks. I'll do whatever around him. But anybody else, maybe that would stop me from actually enjoying this thing that I really want to enjoy.
That's a normal part of your process though, the social listening after a launch? Like, is it like a 1-day thing? Is the whole team on it? And then like, do you always integrate insights and come out with something else? Or is this like, hey guys,
we just love a good deal of punishment when it comes to like, as soon as you think you're done a project, like you're not done. Like you've just started. Hussein brought up, the point of listening. And I think that really the success of this campaign just comes from listening from all angles. And it wasn't even just listening from, a social perspective. It was listening to our client as well, that they were looking at the response to the campaign, the traditional campaign, going, you know what, like our sales could be better. They could be better. Sales could always be better. So you say that around us, and immediately we're going to start thinking about like, okay, well, if we've done the TV spot, we've done the social campaign, what else can we do to create relevance for a new product? And I think to add to that is the element of time, right? I mean, fast food restaurants are coming out with limited time offers, which means you have a limited time to move the product. So that's where the 8 days came into play, where it was like, we couldn't just come out with an idea that was like, great, let's put it out into the world next month, and it's not going to have an impact, within the window that we're trying to affect. We had to get it out into the world and have impact immediately.
Yeah,
that's
I still remember the presentation we had with the client after we put we a few days after the campaign went out, we built a deck and pitched the idea to the clients, and like, amazing, let's do it. And then Kevin and I closed our laptops and we're like, oh, okay, well, we have not a lot of time, and so it was a bad.
Okay, wait, yeah. So the campaign went live. Someone on your team, I think, sort of brought that back. The social listening sort of circled back to you guys. You took what, half an hour or a day to like come up with maybe what we can do,
And yeah, that was in the day. Yeah, it was in the morning. We started jamming, and then in the afternoon we got time with client. Like, look, this is something we can do.
And then what?
Do it. And then
what?
And they bought it right away. I was like, great, do it. And we're like, so that was when that look of fear, terror came across both of our faces and went, holy, what are we going to do? Okay, let's call all the people we know. So, we called all of our resources and worked obviously within, the McKinney agency network to be able to bring all the people together that needed to be brought together. All of the people you saw in the film are people we know, like we didn't do a formal casting. We didn't have time for that. Our account manager, Addie, is in the film with his girlfriend. Yeah. He brought his friend, so it was just as quickly as we could pull this all together, and just how fast it came together, and then how happy we were with kind of the final product of being able to position a garlic chicken sandwich as a way to get closer. And hey, by the way, here's a film to prove it. Really just came together in such an incredible way that we're so proud of.
Okay, Hussein, I still need nuts and bolts. So what did you actually do? We just watched the sort of the recap video of the success or the touch points, but so take me through it. So you cast people, what was it? You had them in conversation. Tell me a little bit about the actual conversation.
To go out to the very beginning when we presented the idea, the idea was, yes, there's the idea of garlic bonding and people could get closer together, but the video portion was creating a piece of content for social, right? So how do we bring this idea to life and have people engage with it? Through a social video of seeing other couples interact. That type of content is all over social. People love comparing their relationship dynamic to other people's relationships. So really wanted to tap into that type of video. So we're like, okay, we'll do that. We'll have couples come together. And I'm not sure if it was clear enough in the video, but they had cards with questions on them that accentuated H sounds, right? So you can really breathe on each other. The table was smaller, so they could sit really close together and they can't escape the garlic smell. So all those little details went into it to really facilitate this experience of what we called garlic bonding, right? So we got real couples in there. We offered them both sandwiches. They ate them, and then they're like, okay, question time. And they each pulled out one card at a time and asked each other these breathy, deep questions that really got them to think about their personal relationships. And that was kind of how the video came together. We had to think about the set in no time. We had to find someone to shoot it, someone to light it, someone to edit it. So as Caleb said, it really was going through the Rolodex of all of our friends and saying, we need to make this happen, and tapping into those resources we have in the agency to move nimbly, right? And put something out in the world.
And big shout out, by the way, to Wendy, our producer, who put it all together. Because this is probably not the project that any producer's yeah, let me in there. This is kind of a nightmare scenario. Hey, let's put together a film in 8 days, shoot it in 4, have it edited, and then live, on socials.
Yeah. There's 2 of us talking on this event here, but there's so many people behind the scenes who really made it happen. And if it wasn't for them and everyone really believing in the idea and being like, this is fun, we want to do this, I don't think it would have made it out in the world.
Did you already have a muscle built for this process, for this kind of fast turn, fast follow thing? So you make the video and then you already had a strategy for how to put it out, where to put it out. Did you have influencers? Did you pay people to promo this? What about that part of it? There's one thing to make it, there's another thing to make it actually hit people and actually drive sales.
I think, to that end, when you only have 8 days to do something, it's a bit of just do it and see what you can do after that, We didn't go into it with hey, here's this full, fleshed out media plan where this is going to work. We knew it was going to hit different social platforms. We did not have an influencer play. We didn't even have money for an influencer sort of play to that end. So we had to get scrappy about how how could we show up in organic conversations where we actually had something to say and something to offer, which is where you see, we started realizing like there's all these different shows that people are talking about where they're fighting all the time. If anybody needs garlic bonding, it's them. So what is a free, organic approach to being able to be a part of that conversation? Well, what if we just dropped in some comments about these people needing garlic bonding, and people in the comments go, what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
Find out. So, in lieu of not having the kind of media support necessarily or the influencer support, because all of this happened so quickly, we yet again had to be extremely scrappy about the way that our message was delivered.
But you have this is why I'm like jealous of people that work at agencies or are creative humans like but you knew exactly what you're like, what you were selling. You were selling the idea of a bond. And then you're like, where can I make this naturally fit? That is a muscle you had. Like, that's like your machinery at a place like McKinney is like how to insert yourself and how to do social listening, how to be appropriate with where you go. Like, that is just such like beautiful scaffolding though, in terms of like knowing your own message that I assume you were leaning upon. Like, that's like a natural part of any creative process, I assume, that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. You're never just selling a sandwich. You're never just selling a credit card. You're never just selling a car, right? There's always a human behavior, human insight behind it of what that car means, what that sandwich can get you, right? So it is a muscle that we've developed, in our time. And it's the way we like to work. It's like, let's not just sell a thing, because I don't think consumers want a thing. I think consumers are looking for connection. They're looking for a benefit. They're looking for something more than just the tangible product. And so I find the best work is the work that goes beyond the tangible product and taps into something that's a little bit deeper, and sometimes silly, and sometimes really human. And I think the kind of the fact that everyone can relate to this. Everyone's had a relationship. Everyone's ate something that smells, and like, well, do I go to that meeting or do I not? Do I go brush my teeth? Like, everyone's had that kind of personal dilemma. Was able to relate to this. Whether you're in a relationship or not, it just felt like there was something for everyone to enjoy, and it was a little bit funny and silly and enjoyable. So it was social content made for social, that made it really easy to integrate as an organic piece versus a paid piece.
But was that normal? Like, did you have a budget for this? Like, you have this arc in this relationship with Popeyes, and then you're like, I've got this thing, I'm just going to do it. Like, how do you balance for your own sake the deliverables that you're like locked into, and then this sort of extra stuff?
Yeah.
And then build it into like what you then offer to the next time because it worked. Like, how do you actually build that?
That's relationship building. I mean, that comes back to having trust in a relationship between client and your agency, to be able to acknowledge that, like, hey, you guys are going to do what you're going to do. You're going to do all the things that we have asked for, but leaving room for the imagination and leaving room for creativity, so that we can have a moment like this where we go, you know what? In the middle of our sleep, we were inspired by something, and we really think that this would be a great opportunity. And, our hats off to our clients at Popeyes that saw the opportunity, saw the fun, saw the joy that could be had, and then made room within the budget to make that happen. The campaign dollars had already been spent. The production dollars had already been spent. Now, if we had gone in with an idea that was so bloated, we couldn't get it out the door, that's another thing that we need to think about all the time too. It's like, this is something you're not asking for, but it's something that would be fun to make. And, it could definitely solve a business problem. It could maybe turn a few sales. So there's a benefit to doing what we do, not just because it's fun and creative to do so. So it's solving our clients' problems in that way, but for them to have the trust in us to be able to go, you know what? It's wild, it's crazy, but it's strategic and it solves the problem that I'm looking to solve. Let's do it. I'll unlock some money for you. And I think you do that once or twice, and then clients start to expect it. It becomes part of the ecosystem where it's like, you know what? We're going to set aside a certain amount of money because we know you guys, and we know you're going to come up with something that nobody could have asked for because it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. Is that the model we're moving towards? Like, how does social playing into sort of these traditional structures and relationships with like a big food client, not necessarily Popeyes, but I just think in general, like, how is McKinney, like, as an agency, how are you shifting and thinking about campaigns writ large? Because they're changing in terms of what people expect and how they're made.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, the most important thing is treating the platform for what it is and respecting it and its users. We use it too. Like, we're people, and we have social media, and we're flipping through it, and we keep track of the way we react to things, right? If I get, if I see an ad, I go, oh, that just completely disturbed my user experience of what I'm expecting. Then that's going to rub me the wrong way, right? And if it's going to rub me the wrong way, it's going to probably rub a lot of other people the wrong way. So, I think sometimes there's this disconnect between, or maybe it's an overcomplication of consumers and the people who make ads, and there's just sort of a disconnect of, like, maybe we overthink it, or we talk about it too much, where we overcomplicate what users want. But I always go back to myself, like, what do I want? What do my friends want? What are they talking about? What is the ad that they're obsessed with, and why? And reverse engineer it. So when we think about social, we're always thinking about, how do we make this a social idea, right? Not just take a social idea, right? Not just take a billboard and then make it work for social, or take a TV spot and make it work for social. Like, it has to be a social idea to be on social. It should almost only live on social, if we want to be extreme about it, right? It wouldn't make sense on TV or anywhere else, right? So just being really intentional and respecting the platforms and the people on it, I think, is going to get us to work that people are not going to be upset about, right? If I get the right ad at the right time saying the right thing, I don't care that it's an ad, right? But it's when there's a disconnect that users kind of have that aversion to advertising, and you get your ad blockers out, and you don't want anything to do with it. So I think respect and really like leaning in and listening, to Gail's point, listening to what the platform is asking for.
I mean, if it has a relatable narrative to your consumer that they want to be a part of, they want to participate in, then I think that there's something in it for them. And I think that's just the basic mechanics of advertising, or effective advertising, is if there's nothing in it for your consumer, then why should they pay attention to you? And so when you look back at how do you create unfair attention, it really does stem from understanding how to communicate a narrative that actually is going to be appreciated by the audience you're trying to reach. So sure, hey, we've got a garlic chicken sandwich. Cool. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like whatever. Yeah.
But hey, we can get you closer to your boyfriend, through the act of eating a garlic chicken sandwich. Okay, well, tell me more about that. Oh, and by the way, there's a funny video that you can watch. Yeah. So you're telling a similar story, but in very different ways.
It becomes a differentiator.
Consumer first.
It becomes a differentiator for the brand too, right? Like, if Popeyes is making a garlic chicken sandwich, so can McDonald's, so can KFC. Everyone can make a garlic chicken sandwich, but how do you then differentiate the garlic chicken sandwich, right? And that's where, we like to get creative and try and think outside the box and go, it's not just a garlic chicken sandwich. It can be more. It can really be a differentiator when everyone else could do the same thing, right? And we saw it, I'm sure McDonald's has a garlic something or other, right? But they don't have a sandwich that brings you closer to your partner. So, when you think about it that way, it kind of contextualize it in a nice way.
And it's funny and curious. It's curiosity piquing. You're like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so there were challenges, obviously, in executing a campaign in 8 days from thought to deliverable. What would you say is like the biggest challenge you actually faced? And what would you have done differently next time, or like integrate, or like what was like a thing that you sort of realized after doing this that maybe you would shift or integrate in general in your career as you move forward?
I mean, doing anything in 8 days, regardless of what it is not the easiest thing. Would not recommend it for your work-life balance, but it was an opportunity, and we had to jump. I think it's hard to say we could have done this differently just by the nature of how little time we had, but having everybody on board, all pushing in the same direction, not just from a production standpoint, but you mentioned earlier about how do you amplify this once you actually get it there. It's bringing everybody up to speed from your media partners to your PR partners. I mean, that's a really important conversation too. When you're talking about a novel idea that feels innovative, even if it is cheeky, how do you all swim in the same direction so that the content and the final deliverable can be as impactful and reach as many people as possible? I think that is such a challenge to kind of motivate everybody to be like, hey, we're going to do this thing in 8 days. Because without that, you can make the thing and wish it had have gone further. And of course, you always think that, but that's the loading.
But how do you actually do that, Caleb? Like, how do you actually bring them together?
Yeah, I think
communication. Is this just talking?
Absolutely. And well, I think it also means that within your network of partners on any brand, be it media or PR, that there has to be sort of a synergy of ideas. They have to be a partner in the creativity.
Mm.
So I think, yes, we are the creative agency, but I think sharing that inspiration, that creative spark, and even looking for builds that could bring us further from a PR perspective, I think that's a really important element to the process. And if you're going to do something in 8 days, you can't build that process as you're trying to get that idea out the door. It has to be there from the beginning. So, if you're watching this and you're like, how do you do something like this? It is making sure that you have those allies, advocates, and really partners that are going to go the path with you.
Yeah. What about you, Hussein? What was a challenge or something that you learned that you're going to do now forever or never do again?
Maybe think twice before still only 8 days to go. No, I think I just echo what Caleb said. It is hard to look back and be hard on those 8 days and say, well, you can always do something better. And I think, we could have done PR better. There could have been an influencer play. There could have been a lot of things that could have been done better, to answer your question. But it's just, when you put it in the context of 8 days, it becomes hard to really point down one thing. But to Caleb's point, I think, you asked him, how do you get people to move in the same direction and row in the same direction? I think it is relationships. And to Caleb's point, these relationships have been built before this idea came out, before the Garlic Bond. It's the relationship we have together of moving fast and rolling with the punches, our relationships with our production partners and our account people, all those relationships, the work that you put into, growing them over time, when the clock strikes and you need them to be there, they're there because you've built that over time, right? Versus trying to move mountains suddenly. So I think that's kind of the secret sauce, if you will, is really just building those relationships over time, and then when you need them, you can count on them to really make something happen, even in 8 days.
Being a good human, basically.
Being a good human helps. Yeah, when you have people you can be nice to, they'll be nice back.
Listen, it doesn't come naturally sometimes. You got to work on it, but we do our best.
Yeah. Well, okay, so what are you guys most excited about? You've been doing this since you were interns. You're working together. You're kind of in this interesting position in McKinney. The Toronto office is it sort of like an upstart office? What's the relationship with Toronto versus the larger McKinney?
Yeah. It's a huge opportunity. It's a new market for this agency. We were brought on board. So a little side note, we were brought on in January of last year, and then we put out this work, I think it was in March or something like that.
Oh, wow.
We were like, hit the ground running. Let's go. Let's do the thing. So what McKinney Canada is a new office, an extension of McKinney, which is traditionally a U.S. agency, now serving the Canadian market. So we are two Canadian creatives here who are leading the creative operations from this office and building out what really does look like a bit of a startup agency, but powered by an agency with over 50 years of experience winning unfair attention for their clients.
Right, but agencies are shifting, and so I think it's smart that you're leaning into that or figuring out new models for it to work. What are you guys excited about that you're doing, and in terms of how you operate or areas you're operating? What actually inspires you in terms of the field you're in?
There's a ton of excitement right now. When there's an interesting challenge for us in that, McKinney is, in the US is known as an agency that's been there for over 50 years, to over 200 employees. There's a very established brand of McKinney in the US. In Canada, there isn't that. This is the first office. And so our challenge moving forward is really, how do you build that presence in Canada? How do you introduce a new agency to a new market? What's differentiating about us between us and other agencies? That really excites us. Building something from the ground up is one of the main reasons we came and joined this challenge, because it was a bit of an unknown, to be honest. You're jumping into something where, we were, I think, employee 2 and 3 in the office. So you're building something from the ground up, and that in itself is really exciting. And it allows us to rethink how we do things, right? When you're building something from the startup, you can question everything. How are we treating production? How are we treating our social work? How are we treating everything is a question we ask ourselves every day. And it allows us to kind of reimagine ourselves and reimagine a new model for an agency in a space that we're very familiar with. So that is super exciting for us every day.
Cool. Caleb, what are you excited about? Or advertising, commercials in general, areas for it. Is the ad dying? Is it growing? Is it a new?
It's not dying. It's just changing. And I think the way that we have to approach it has to change too. I think our message is unfair attention. How are we creating unfair attention for you? And that's attention that you can't buy. That is conversations that you should not be in, but somehow you create a way in, and I think that garlic bonding is a good example of that. But every campaign that we try to deliver has to have something that catches an eye or catches the attention of the audience that we're looking for. What I'm most excited about is I think we're in a huge shift right now. I think there's a lot of opportunity for smaller and upcoming agencies to demonstrate how scrappy they can be. In Canada, I think there's one thing that we know is that we have to do a lot more with a lot less. Our budgets are not huge.
Yeah.
To put together a small little film like Garlic Bonding, we didn't have a lot of money to do it. So, it was all hands on deck making it happen. And I think that that's something that Hussein and I have always gravitated towards. It's like, okay, the money might not be there, but we'll find the resources, we'll find the ability to do it. And as we're continuing to build out our offering here and demonstrating that through campaigns like these, we're looking towards new prospects and new clients and sharing these stories as we're building them, case study by case study, to prove what is possible. And it doesn't need to cost the world, and it doesn't need to go through a huge holding company agency. It just doesn't anymore. There's a lot that can be done and a lot of attention that can be won from our audiences in untraditional means.
Okay, cool. Well, we've been chatting for about half an hour. I'd love to open it up to some of the folks that have been listening.
Wait, this is live?
Yeah, it's live.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I think I know why you guys have good jobs. You're like actually funny. All right. Yeah, we have some questions from the audience. Let's see, from Ben. What's your advice to creatives who are trying to pitch story first work to clients who just want to see their product front and center? How do you guys go about that?
Caleb, how do you feel about it?
I know an answer. I've got an answer for you. It's all about solving a business problem. So you can have the craziest, wackiest idea in the world, as long as it is strategically sound and relates back to the business problem they're trying to solve, it is sellable. And I think the way that you can create those correlations between their business problem to your creative solution is what I think gets people really excited. Having a story first pitch or creative, I think, is a really important thing to have. Having a narrative that an audience can buy into is super important. But at the end of the day, is it going to answer the problem? Yes or no is really what a client, I think, is going to be looking for.
And it's interesting because part of my brain is like, well, obviously everything needs to have a story. Why wouldn't you know that? And you could spend all your time being like, see, story matters, or you could just try to really listen into what they're saying they're trying to solve and then formulate your answer to that. I mean, it should obviously be an answer, but if it's true that stories are always in demand, then you should be able to do that.
Yeah. One thing I'll add, and it's sort of I don't say a trick, but like a little thought experiment that you can do sometimes is write down exactly what they want. So if they like, hey, I want the product to be there in the first 5 seconds and that's it. And then you can do whatever you want with the other 25 seconds. So give them what they want, but then everything around it, do it on your terms. So if the product does start, on the first 5 seconds, what could you do to still have a story on then the other 25 seconds, right? It could be an interesting box to put yourself in to create some really interesting ads. Like I think there's Little Caesars did that a great job in their, their ads with, I'm missing it. What is it? The arm one?
Yeah, the cast.
Yeah. Anyway, the Little Caesars $5 hot and ready spots were a great example of that, where they literally almost just said the offer, but they did it in a really hilarious way that still allowed you to tell a story. So that could be a little way to kind of think about it differently.
Totally.
Also cry. Like if you can cry on command. If you can cry on demand, if you can bribe them somehow.
So good. Yes.
You can get them drunk. That usually
it's always good. Yeah. Just
sell it to them when they're drunk.
Let's not give all our secrets away. All right.
And sign. Make sure they sign. Right. Yeah. All right. We have another question from Samuel. I thought about ideation. Yeah. What does ideation look like for your team? What's the process? I wanted to ask this too. Like, how do you guys spitball? What do you do? Do you write down 100 prompts? Do you just laugh? Like, I don't know. What's your process?
Our process is we start by laughing. Yeah. Because if we're having a good time, we're going to do good work, and that's kind of just the way we do it. So if you ever see us in the office, you always hear us before you see us. So if we're around the corner, you'll be able to hear us before you see us. We always just start with a brief and start with just our both like we're very different people and we come from different backgrounds, and so that the uniqueness of our perspective form some really interesting ideas and really interesting combinations. So we usually just start with the brief and just talk, right? Like, what did it spark for you? What did it spark for me? We'll both have our notes and bounce them back off each other, and go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about that, and vice versa. And that kind of gives us a bit of a pool of thoughts and ideas to work with. And then from there, it becomes a bit of a refining process. Now let's think about what is, let's go deeper on the brief. Are there specific deliverables that we need to then filter in? And it is really just like a funnel of starting as wide as possible. Sometimes we talk about things that are completely unrelated, right? Just to make sure we're feeling free and, feeling in the spirit of ideation. And then we funnel down and get more and more specific.
It's like that scene from Ghost, where they're making the clay and you can't really tell what it's going to look like, but they're there together making it. And then, one thing after another, and it turns into an ashtray.
But are you looking for a script? Like, are you looking for character setting action like that, or are you framing what you're looking for? Or are you just looking for the concept, like bonding, and then it goes anywhere, like a spider web? Yeah. I mean,
it depends on the brief, of course, as well. If they're asking for a TV spot, it leans that way. But you start concept first. You start idea first.
Yeah.
What is the idea? What are we trying to say? How does that relate to our audience? Why would they care?
Yeah.
And it's like, what is the narrative that comes out of that concept? Sometimes you're looking at a brief that asks you to create a whole new platform. It's like, okay, what is this brand going to stand for? And therefore it's like, well, how do you express that platform? That might be like a 3-word tagline in the end. How do you express that as a 30-second TV spot, or just as a billboard, or as some sort of social stunt? This is kind of how it usually plays out.
Cool. All right. We've got one more from
Fawn.
How did you choose which human insight to act on? That is a question. For example, how did you land on dating versus friendship while selecting the final creative direction? And how much of it comes from the client? Like in that, like how much insight did you get from the client? Like on what was that relevant, or did you guys decide on the angle?
Everything moves so fast that there was no real time for back and forth. I believe at the time, Kel was telling me about an article he read where, he was reading about how couples who are comfortable being human in front of each other,
who fart in front of each other.
I was trying to be polite, but yes, who fart in front of each other, tend to last longer, right? Which makes total sense, right? You're more comfortable being yourselves, and so it's gonna foster some more of a loving relationship. And so, starting with that insight, starting with some data, some science, some people smarter than us actually validated this, and we're like, hey, what if we can take a bit of a leap here and go, if that's true, that's probably true for your breath, probably true for garlic bonding, right? So it was backed by science, Ufan. That's why we chose it. It wasn't on a whim. It was science.
Well, it was backed by some post we saw on science.
Real scientists are why we chose that human insight. But also, it spoke to us, right? Like we were like, yeah, that is true, right? And we kind of, again, going back to like putting ourselves in the shoes of the consumer, it spoke to us. I was like, yeah, I could see people doing this, and I could see people engaging with this, and so that really made it feel like, hey, we're onto something.
And to that end, I mean, we even talked about, should we have more time? It's like, sure, start it with a date, but then it's like, well, what does that look like if you and your friend, I said to Hussein, like, when are we going to do some garlic bonding? So it's the concept itself doesn't live and die necessarily with just the one type of relationship. It's like, how do you make it relevant to all sorts of different kinds of relationships? It's like, do you and your boss need to go on a garlic bonding? Maybe not. I actually wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
But, you ask yourself those questions, and sometimes you find the right answer.
Okay, cool. We have one last question. There's actually a few of them in the chat. So if you guys want to, on the LinkedIn, when we're done, you can, if folks want to keep asking questions, Caleb and Hussein can go in and sort of like answer them there as replies possibly, or my team can as well. But there is one last one here. It says, great chat. Thank you. How do you see AI changing this landscape? How are you guys seeing it from your perspective? It's the eternal question everyone's ending with.
Yeah, well, I thought we'd sneak past this one.
I thought we would too.
It's okay. We can just
no, it's all good. I think it's a great question, and we'll add our 2 cents to it. AI is obviously changing the landscape. I think when you look at production, when you look at ideation, just as a tool for any creative or any person to use, AI is really changing that forefront. So, I mean, I'm not an AI expert, but I'll just say it is changing every facet of our work. If you're a strategist, you're using it. If you're a creative, you're using it. If you're in production, and it's just changing rapidly so fast that, what it really looks like just keeps changing. in terms of the way we see it, you know, there's the phrase that's been said a million times, you know, you won't be replaced by AI, you'll be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI, right? And as cliche as it is true, right? And so we are not sitting here going, well, advertising is going to change completely and all ads are going to go away and humans are going to be removed. I think human insight isn't going anywhere, right? I think making work that relates to humans isn't going anywhere. I think the way we do it is completely changing. You know, from a production pipeline, from a strategy pipeline, like it's in our workflow every day, whether it's, you know, searching for insights or you just have a certain weird question that you can't, you know, it's going to take you 20 minutes to go down a Google rabbit hole. You can just ask Gemini or ChatGPT to get that answer for you. It's those ways of accelerating the creative process is really the way we've been using it in our day-to-day.
I like that, accelerating the creative process statement. Also, you just rename it Hussein and Caleb, so you guys feel like you're talking to each other, right? And then it's all fine. No? No? Oh.
Yeah. On his days off, I really need someone to talk
Yeah,
to. So
exactly.
using a Hussein bot would be helpful. But it's also, I mean, I don't think we're at a place where AI can make connections between two things that have never been connected before. And if you think about garlic bonding, I mean, that's a connection that feels novel. I've never heard of it before, you know? So to create the connection between those two very different dots, like what does a, you know, garlic breath have to do with selling 2 sandwiches or with getting closer, you know? And that's only something that I think, you know, 2 idiots in a room that are joking around can really get to. You can go to AI then at that point and go, okay, now that I have the nugget of what we're talking about here, what are other ways that this could come to life? And it might springboard, you know, oh, hey, there's a bunch of dating shows. Have you ever thought about, you know, like, yes, that would be an interesting way to develop this further. But just the kernel of the thought has to come from the human brain, because I just don't think that AI is quite there yet. Ask me tomorrow, it could be a very different answer, but as of today, we're doing okay.
No, I like that. It's like the ping pong inspired thing that we do as humans. That is the nature of the brain is very different than logical connections. And then what it does is it fills in and it doesn't really make sense. But the making the leap in a way it is currently special. You are correct. Well, this was thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you guys both for joining me. If there's any, I don't know what we would send, but we could send around sort of the actual campaign, or if there's anything else, we'll send it out to folks that tuned in. And like I said, if you still have questions, there might be some that we can answer afterwards, but thank you. We are, as I mentioned, open for entry. So if you're making commercials and marketing work, or you're doing traditional ads or promotional pieces, we are judging them actively here at the Telly Awards. So the final deadline is the 20th, which is like next week. We are around to help if you see that QR code. And otherwise, thank you, gentlemen, both. Can't wait to see what you make up in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.